everyone, welcome to Soleil Short Film Saturday. I'm Jamaican 𝗞𝗚𝗧, and my co-host is Alicia Cristiani. And we're really excited this week because this is Third Horizon and Soleil Space Short Film Saturday, a collaboration that we do every 2 months with the Third Horizon Film Festival. Our mission is to achieve a more equitable and representative global film and TV landscape. Our focus is on the global diasporas of Asia, Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Middle East, with the goal of elevating untold stories from these cultures, forming closer transcultural community bonds, and providing opportunities and resources for creators from these communities to produce premium world-class content. We specialize in film, TV, and editorial media, and we aim to lift up these underrepresented voices from these regions that are not often seen, authentically represented, or well understood in the global mainstream media. And we think that there's no better way to do this than via short films. We have a podcast called Soleil Spotlight, where we profile filmmakers from the global South diasporas and kept hearing from people, why can't we see their work? And so we're like, okay, let's find a way for them to see their work, especially their early work, right? So short films are often a filmmaker's first expression artistically, often the purest form of expression, and not executed with big production budgets, right? So it's very raw and very creative and very resourceful. And since launching Short Film Saturdays in late summer of 2021, we're about to celebrate our first year anniversary, so we have a lot to come up there. But we featured 51 films from 41 filmmakers in 21 countries to date. So I'm really excited to introduce these two filmmakers from the Caribbean today. But before we go into their really cool bios, I'm going to introduce Third Horizon Film Festival and let Alicia Cristiani tell you more about Third Horizon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Cristiani. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Engagement for Third Horizon. Third Horizon is an award-winning film collective. We concentrate on developing, producing, exhibiting, and distributing film and other art forms that give voice to stories from the Caribbean, the diaspora, and other marginalized and underrepresented spaces in the global South. Films from our collective have screened in festivals such as Sundance, Black Star, Berlinale, and TIFF, but also we produce our own festival, Third Horizon Film Festival, which just happens in Miami, which we showcase an exciting new wave of cinema and creativity from the emerging filmmakers from the Caribbean and the diaspora. I'm really excited to be here today to support these two awesome filmmakers and show your work.
All right, so I'm gonna get into these two women from Barbados and Jamaica. And I could tell you guys that these films are really some of the best that we've screened across the board from any region in Short Film Saturday. So excited to have you both. And we're going to read their bios and then they would introduce their films. So Kia Moses. Kia, yes, Kia is a filmmaker from Jamaica, armed with a suitcase full of banana chips. Kia left Jamaica to major in advertising at the School of Visual Arts, SVA, in New York. In 2007, she graduated with honors, multiple awards, and was ranked in the top 100 advertising students in the USA. After working at ad agencies in New York and London, plus interning for Music Video Director X, she returned home with a passion to pour everything back into the Jamaican creative industry. Since then, this Imaginationista, which is, I think, my new favorite word, who clearly also makes up for her own words, all of her own words, co-founded TCP, which is Those Creative People, and now spends her days switching gears between conceptualizing ideas, creative direction, copywriting, and product development for TCP's own product line, which includes Jamaican greeting cards and One Bag of Things. After years of writing TV ads, she's excited to finally add screenwriting and directing to this list. And the film that you're about to see, Flight, is her very first film. Her hobbies include reading, writing, photography, ballet, and confidently screaming out wrong answers at Jeopardy. Welcome, Kia.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and let me introduce Melanie Grant. Melanie is a filmmaker and activist, currently completing her final year of the Bachelor of Fine Arts program at the University of the West Indies. Is this in the Barbados campus, Jamaica campus, Melanie? Which one?
That's not correct. I'm done.
Oh, you're done. Okay, great.
I think these bios are just a little bit old, but still relevant.
During her career, Melanie has also taken courses in gender and development studies, which have guided her purpose as an artist. She holds the belief that cinema should be used as a tool for activism and hopes to use her films to highlight issues affecting women and sexual minorities in the Caribbean. Her short film, Pieta, which examines the long-form effects of homophobia on relations, made its international debut in 2016 at the Caribbean Tales Film Festival in Toronto. Upon graduating, well, she graduated, so Kia is now pursuing a master's in gender. Did you finish the master's as well?
I did it in visual anthropology, not gender studies.
Very cool. And hopes to continue creating films inspired by her research on gender and sexuality in the Caribbean. So welcome to you both, ladies. And first, I'll ask Kia to go first because we are showing Flight first to introduce the film. Don't give anything away because there's a lot of mystery and journey in Flight. And then followed by Melanie, you could both introduce your films.
So hello again, everyone. I'm honored to be here and I'm excited for you to see Flight. Flight is, I like to think of Flight as the little film that could, and it stars a little boy who has a dream 10 times his size to fly to the moon despite the opposition of his father. So I hope you enjoy.
Melanie?
Well, thank you for having me and for screening the book of Jasmine, which is a queer love story set against the backdrop of an Afro-Caribbean space, and you don't often get to see this story, so I'm happy to share it with you.
All right. So we're about to screen Flight, followed by Book of Jasmine, and after the films screen, then we'll be back here for Q&A with these two directors. I'm really excited, two female Caribbean directors. I can't say that enough. I'm really excited about that. So enjoy the show, guys. All right, folks. So we're back and we're ready for this Q&A. We could see that you guys are ready for this Q&A. The comments in these chats during these screenings are always just as entertaining as the films themselves. So thank you so much already. And we know that you have a lot of questions, so we're going to jump right into it. For those of you who are just joining us, this is Short Film Saturdays with Soleil Space and Third Horizon Film Festival. And we have here with us two Caribbean female filmmakers, Kia Moses and Melanie Grant, and you just watched Flight and Book of Jasmine. So starting with Flight, Kia, we were really struck by, I think there's this kind of universal thread when it comes to parents and children and their dreams and whether they encourage them or not, but it takes a very different life and extremities depending on what culture you're set in, right? So every culture has those different generational dynamics when it comes to expectations of children and what they're allowed to pursue as career paths. How do you think that this manifests in Jamaican society, and kind of contextualize that with relation to what you wanted to convey in Flight? Was that a thing that you wanted to comment on through the film?
That was definitely a thing. I mean, in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, there's a lot of pressure to go down the more traditional career paths. And I feel like that's across the board. And one of the things that I guess I poured into was just going off that path into a more creative field, which is literally embodied in him dreaming about going to the moon. And one of the things is you then have the parent at the crossroads of, do I support this outlandish dream, do I literally get on board or do I oppose it? And I wanted to show that just debate and also the power of when a parent does come on board the dream. And that's literally what enabled the protagonist to take flight in the end, was that it didn't matter whether or not he ever got to the moon, but just having the support of a parent with your dreams is literally what makes you take flight.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. And, I think what you say too is it just really talks about that power of imagination, which we really get into. But, I'll pause there and not jump that question and let Alicia jump in on that one.
I think that's a universally Caribbean issue that we all deal with our parents and our children. But I particularly was struck the film, a very small moment, well, not small, but the moment the father realizes why the son wants to go to the moon, the power of that moment. I saw a lot of people were like, "You're making me cry on a Saturday morning." But what got me about that was that the father felt the moment. He started to cry, but he turned his face from his son. Right. Yeah. So he didn't want his, and I feel like the son knew what was happening, but he respected his space. But even as the father got up and made his decision that, yes, we're going to go ahead with this flight, even when he grabbed his hand, he still kept his face away. So that moment just to me spoke volumes about how Caribbean men in particular deal with strong emotions, sadness, pain, tears. And I don't know if that was a choice you asked the actor to make or that he decided to make. If you could just expound on that a little more.
Yes, one of the things I wanted to explore in this, there were so many layers and I love playing around with layers. And one of the layers was actually a family dealing with loss in different ways and going through the different stages of grief. And so the father is stuck in anger, and he isn't giving in to his feelings because in the Caribbean, another theme is just, again, men and boys not feeling comfortable to just literally go there with their emotions and open up about it. And so I had the father and son dealing with the loss of the mother in different ways. And the father himself hasn't stopped to let all those feelings rush in and set in and let the tears out. And it's literally the moment that he realizes that in the middle of all of his rage, he wasn't thinking about what his son needed and how his son was dealing with grief, because I had the son stuck in the stage of denial. And just using escapism and, wanting to literally still get to his mom and having this dream of going to the moon. And so I still wanted there to be the true to life. I did ask the actor to do that because I still wanted there to be that true to life way that Jamaican men, even when it's coming out, they're still not, they're still trying to hide how they're feeling. So there is that turn away and them being slightly away from each other while they're going through the same emotions, and then him showing his love through action, which is the love language of many Caribbean men. Right. And men in general, the love language of action. So he starts to show, I'm here for you, without necessarily a lot of bag of emotion and maybe embracing him at that moment, but instead choosing to take action with what the boy needed to go through to reach the state of acceptance for both of them.
And I think there was a moment where you showed the kind of break in that, that distance between them when the boy kind of inches towards him. Yeah. I picked that one up. It was so subtle but effective.
It closes in the gap, but it doesn't fully ever reach that full point of embrace.
Yes. And let's go back a little bit to that self-description as an Imaginationista. As I said, that's my new favorite word when I read it. I'm like, I love this. And you really brought that to the film, and this was your first film. I think that's worth repeating for people who miss that. This is such an excellent first film. So it's clear that you put so much into it. How personal was this? And tell us about how imagination has helped you, in your own experiences, and, how did that feed into the motivations of the character wanting to go to space?
Well, for me, I grew up as an only child, and so I always had this very larger than life imagination. And being in the Caribbean, I always wondered career-wise what I could do with that. And I remember meeting with a lady here in Jamaica who helps place children in colleges, and I was asking what combines visuals and words, and she told me advertising, and I said, okay, I'll do that. That's how I ended up in advertising. And it's funny that it led me to film, which is also another combination of words and visuals. But I was always trying to figure out what to do with that imagination, and I think I poured some of that in. And also in the reverse, once I was away and decided to come back, because I am born in the States, but I grew up my whole life in Jamaica. A lot of people made me feel like I was making a mistake in moving back home to Jamaica. What are you doing? Why wouldn't you stay in America? You know, it's land of all that glitters and
everything.
I know, but my heart was always set in Jamaica. And I'm literally an island girl at heart. And one of my dreams was to come back and do big things from our little island. And that's one of the things that I wanted to capture in the film, is just this little boy. He's literally the smallest character I could think of, who would feel even further removed from the moon, and him literally having these big dreams and going after those big dreams from home. And then it not mattering whether you leave or not. But so I really tried to capture that, is, you know, because we as Jamaicans and Caribbean people, we have such big dreams and we're so fearless with how we pursue them. And I feel like anything we set our mind to, we achieve. And it's such an inspiring mentality. And I just wanted to pick something that we haven't achieved as yet, which could be like going to the moon. And it's just,
Right. Oh,
you know,
cool.
if we wanted to, we could do it. And so it's capturing that Jamaican, you know, spirit and mentality.
And you did like such a good job with the contrast of how far away he was from the dream, like showing the hole in his shoes, you know, like the,
Yes.
you know, those subtle wings to like how poor he was. Like even if he really, you know, wanted to pursue this all the way, all the financial barriers and society barriers beyond his father, right? Like that would have kept him from doing it. It was really, really well done.
Exactly. Thank you. To just make him keep feeling further removed from the goal. And yeah, I'm obsessed with details. So I love like literally trying to find all these tiny details. So I'm glad you picked up on them.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the way that 𝗘𝗧, the lead boy, chased his dream and was enmeshed in his fantasy. But he had a friend, Rashawn, and they seem to be the same age, and they seem to have started at the same place. But Rashawn goes into a different direction. Like he lets go the dream. He doesn't have the fantasy anymore. And to me, that speaks volumes about, you know, the paths that Caribbean people are offered and decide, and how they decide to take these paths. How did you decide to have him, you know, stop the dream and go off into a different path, and why? What do you think that speaks to us in Jamaican society?
Yes, one of the things I wanted to capture was the importance of being at that crossroads where you're going to choose to either hang on to your dream or give up, to continue to go against the grain, or you know, follow what everyone else is doing, violence or non-violence. So capturing that crossroads and personifying them in two characters, and showing the importance of the difference that was made when a parent stepped in at that crossroads with one of their dreams, versus Rashane, who's literally just always out. He's that kid who's just literally never home and you wonder where his parents are. To just show again the important role that a parent and a community plays in that crossroads. And something that was so special is I got, one of my dreams with this was to screen it in the community that I filmed it in, and we got to do that. And I just wanted to also reflect the community back to itself, show the community how beautiful they are, how magical their place is, and really inspire the parents in real life to just really be aware of that crossroads and the community as well, in terms of being there for the kids. So yeah.
Good. And the visuals, I think that's with, you know, punctuating with, these visuals are really amazing. And to be able to, you know, go from play, imagination, surrealness, and back to reality in a short film
on a budget.
On a budget, exactly.
Low.
I mean, and I actually know the cinematographer, Gabby.
Yes, I was just about to say big ups to Gabrielle
Big
Black.
up to Gabby.
She's phenomenal. And again, you know, I was so excited to have a female DP. And, you know, when she gets like her big camera on her shoulder and she's running through the lanes, you know, following our actors, it was just everything about it was amazing. And to this day, Gabby and I, you know, we love working together, and she's just so talented.
Yeah, she's I would say she's one of the sharpest eyes. I like to call this cinematographer. They're the eyes, right? She's one of the sharpest eyes coming out of Jamaica. Like, and as of, you know, a lot of people don't know how difficult it is to be a female cinematographer, to be the DP as a female. A lot of people assume you can't carry the equipment, and there's a whole thing around that.
She's a boss. She's a boss with it. And she's DP, director, writer. She's so multi-talented, and it's always such an honor. She was definitely my dream DP for this project. I knew immediately who I wanted because I wanted it to have magic. And I feel like, you know, she brings that magic and that magical lighting and just everything about it. I knew she was who I wanted to work with.
Awesome. And then, okay, so we're switching it out to Book of Jasmine because we want to make sure we have space to dive into this one.
And what a beautiful film. I'm so happy I got to see it, Melanie.
All right, Melanie, so we're kicking off. We're going to start with you because this seems like a very intimate, personal story. So how much of yourself is in this story? And can you tell us a bit about the overall inspiration?
A lot of myself is in it. I think most of my work draws on my own life experiences. But it was based on research, actually, because it was done in the context of a school project. So my thesis film for my undergrad. And I was doing research on that intersection between spirituality and sexuality and the choice that a lot of queer Caribbean people have to face when you're brought up, like the Caribbean is still very a religious Christian space. So you're brought up in this, and then the space that you're in tells you that you can't be yourself. Do you reject the space, or do you sort of make it work? Do you hide part of yourself? Like there's so many ways of approaching it. And I think that that's why I wanted to do the research, to understand how people are approaching it in the Caribbean. So yeah, it came from that. But I mean, it's not my first film on the subject matter in terms of like LGBTQ themes. The one before this was more semi-autobiographical. But this one was a bit more like I did the research. It was about the people I conducted the research with and drawing on their stories. And then the religious space that I was in, I spent like weeks, hours and hours on end, just like being in the spiritual Baptist space, learning, understanding how a queer person might fit into that space, and the values and beliefs of that space. So yeah, even though it is very personal, it is also drawing a lot on research and conversations with other people.
Though the story focuses on a queer couple, a queer female couple, everyone in the film is a woman. I noticed there, and I assume there are men in the Spiritual Baptist Church. So I believe that's an intentional choice. Can you speak to why you chose not to include any men in the film, and what that says, what it was about the story you were trying to use that with?
That's a very knowing smile.
We spoke about this in our last sort of interview about like why I had pretty much all women in my film, and most of my films have all women. I like that feminine energy in the creative space and working with women on set. And I also like that in terms of the storytelling, like having that when I'm writing. I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to write about men. I don't really connect to the characters. So I tend to stick to writing about women. Most of my films have like 3 women that are all like relating to each other. But yeah, it was a conscious choice as well for this, because in the spiritual Baptist space, it's a patriarchal space, but it's, I'd say like 80 to 90% women in it, you know, the ones who hold the wisdom, share the knowledge, pass it on to their children. But the men still, in Barbados, a woman can't be an archbishop, you know, but men are still the minority. So they still lead the churches, but the churches have majority women. So that was also something that I wanted to make a point about, that it's all these women, and then the men still dominate the space. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Well, I'm glad that you that was a perfect segue to this question, because you know, the film deals with, like you said, the intersection between religion and spirituality. But let's talk about the religion side of it for a bit. And for those of us in the Caribbean, because we have an audience that's global on Short Film Saturdays, we have people tuning in from everywhere, right? And so for us in the Caribbean, the spiritual Baptist faith, like in Trinidad, we say Shelter Baptist. I don't know, do other islands say Shelter Baptist as well? Right. Yeah. You know, we use it interchangeably. And that's a form of Christianity that's rooted in African tradition. But for those who aren't familiar, watching from cultures outside of that, speak about that religion in the context of Bajan society. You touched on the patriarchy of it, but you know, how influential is it, and how does it factor symbolically, especially with the visuals that you used in the film?
A lot. So, well, the spiritual Baptists that exist in Barbados are from Trinidad originally, or St. Vincent. So it's a lot of the people in the faith are from those countries. But yeah, spiritual baptism is a sort of Afro-Caribbean faith, but it is rooted in Christianity. There's the belief of the Bible, there's the baptism, etc. But one of the main things are visions and dreams. Like, that's so central to the faith. And I wanted to sort of explore that in the form of the film as well. And this dreamscape, I wanted it to feel very dreamy. It starts with sort of this vision and ends with this vision. And that was the first image that actually came to me when I was thinking about creating this film. The last shot of the film was the first thing that came to me. And I was like, okay, how do I get to there? How do I get them in this dream space? And the ritual that takes place is called the mourning ritual, it's called mourning, but it has nothing to do with loss. I think that might have confused some people when she says, I'm going to mourn. It's not grieving, it's not loss. It's just a ritual where you lie down in the same space in this room, blindfolded for as long as you want. It could be a few days, it could be a few weeks, and you experience these visions and dreams. And for me, I thought maybe using that space where she undergoes this ritual and finds that self-acceptance through her spiritual practice. And I think a lot of people might sometimes think like religious spaces for queer people don't offer any comfort or solace or healing, or, you know, a way to process what they're going through in a society that doesn't always accept them. But she finds acceptance through her spiritual space. And I mean, I entered into spiritual baptism after that, and I, for the most part, I found that as well. Like it's a for the most part a very welcoming space, an understanding space, and yeah, I thought that was important to show, because a lot of queer films you see, if they're in a Christian space, it's homophobia. And I didn't want that to come across as strongly. I mean, her spiritual mother says what she says, but so it's important to see that perspective, because it's true, it exists. But then when she does the ritual, she has this dream of them together, and there's this understanding that if a dream is given to you, it's given to you from God, and if God accepts the two of them together, then she can find that peace within herself. So that was
That's so interesting, because I was kind of expecting, you know, at some point in the story for it to be about the church condemning her or them, and it didn't quite happen. I mean, Mother Irene does say, you know, ask who it is, and you're not, you know, implying that you need to give her up. But it's not really quite what I thought it was going to be. So that I found very interesting, because then when it's revealed that I think Ruth, the woman she's in love with, is part of the church. But she's so she's clearly found a way to practice her religion, practice her love, and still, you know, be fulfilled in both ways, while, you know, Jasmine is still trying to find reach that peace that she has between the two worlds. So that's a very interesting way to handle, because I don't think I've really ever seen a Christian or a religious story having to deal with queer people that have a positive, you know, spin to it. So I really applaud you for the way you handled it in this story.
And it was a good clue on that point. Sorry, I just wanted to
go ahead.
To that point that you just made, Alicia, it was a good clue. The clue of that was when she gave her the cross, the chain with the cross. Because I was like, oh, so is she religious too? Because usually they kind of paint this as an outside force from the church. That's the devil coming to take you away from the church. And, you know, so that was the first clue. And then you kind of paid it off later in that scene. Yeah.
It could be very us versus them. And like you said, that this outsider that's evil, you know, but she's in it, and she's found a way to make peace with it. And so I think she's like, why isn't Jasmine going there? I can be there. And that was the experience in my research. I found like different people along that spectrum of comfort in that space and still grappling with that internal conflict. But I met a lot of people who were at peace, you know, being in the middle and not having to feel like they had to choose or reject one part of their identity, that their spiritual and sexual identity could coexist, and they could find happiness in that.
So I think you answered my question then. Well, I'm hoping I wasn't the only one wondering this, and I think it's great that like you contextualize that dreamscape, right? Because at the end, I wasn't sure. She's laying down, people are resting crosses next to her, or swords. I'm not sure. And you could explain the symbolism of that, like what the meaning of that is in the ritual. So it was like, did she die and then she went to some kind of heaven? Or was this a symbolic death of herself, of her inner self? And then she escapes through her dreams. Like, so you touched on it. I think I know the answer, but still, like, you know, clarify that ending, and kind of from a death perspective, was that part of the narrative at the end?
Well, like I said, mourning is not, the word doesn't come from like a loss, but some people in research on the faith have said that mourning does come from that idea of you are being reborn. So part of you, there is a death that's undertaken, and you come out as a different person. I mean, it looks scary. I've done it. It is a bit intimidating at first, but once you like have those visions and dreams, like it can be very transformative. And that's why I wanted to show that it is this transformative space for her. We don't see the after, but I was hoping that so the visual is a reference to Adam and Eve, which is a Genesis and a beginning. So it's a new beginning for her in her reimagining of herself with this woman in this religious space. So I used the religious imagery of Adam and Eve in this garden. So it's a Genesis, it's a beginning that happens at the end of this story. So yeah, that was why.
Very cool. Okay. So we're going to ask both of you a couple questions, and I'll cue the audience to start putting their questions in the chat. If you've asked a question during the screenings, because you guys are chatting so much, it would have gotten lost. So put it again so that we can see your questions, okay? But, you know, to both of you, what are the overall cultural commentaries that you meant for these films to make about your respective cultures? So in totality, Kia, what did you want Flight to say about Jamaica? And Melanie, what did you want Book of Jasmine to say about Barbados?
Well, for sure, I wanted to tell a different kind of story, because I feel like a lot of the times in Jamaica, the films and stories that have come out have focused a bit more on the violence. And whereas that is one side of our truth, I wanted to be a part of telling the other types of stories and the other sides to Jamaica, like just how big we are about just dreaming and, you know, reaching for things that can initially feel like they're not within our grasp. So I wanted people to just feel that we are the little island of big dreamers and that there's just many more sides to us.
That is great. And that is like so, that really makes me emotional, because I think the Caribbean, we live way beyond our size. Like we are definitely little engines that could in all fields, in all realms, you know. So I think you captured that really well. And I think the masculinity, Jamaican masculinity, that's a thing.
Yes, for sure. That's
very distinct, right, from even other Caribbean cultures. Yeah.
Very, very big theme, and even something that has been quite a journey personally with just like, you know, the men in my life, my father, my grandfather, how we relate to each other. So it was also shining a light on that and uplifting our boys and our men, you know, showing them as good and letting them know it's okay to embrace those sides of them. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel. It's okay to just let their guard down.
What about you, Melanie?
I think for me, I wanted to tell the story of two minority groups like that are misunderstood. Even spiritual Baptists alone, a lot of people say, oh, that's voodoo, that's phobia, that's, you know, and there's all these negative connotations around Afro-Caribbean spirituality as well. Just the same, they face that same sort of prejudice that the queer communities face. So I just wanted to show two communities that are often misunderstood and show that, yes, you do face homophobia in Barbados, but that there's ways to sort of navigate it and find like happiness and comfort. Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say.
I'd love if the two of you could speak to how the music in your films help support the story you were trying to tell. They, in different ways, help to evoke emotion and place and time. So could you speak to how you chose how to score each of your films?
Melanie, you can go first.
It's the same song. It's a spiritual Baptist hymn that's sort of distorted. And yeah, I wanted something that was slightly lent to that same dreamy feel that I was trying to achieve. And a bit haunting as well too. I don't know why I wanted that feeling, but yeah, it's just a distorted hymn that's repeated, and then the sound. So sound is important in spiritual practice space. It's so central to the practice. But the film opens with the ringing of the bells over this hymn, and that's how, when you open a service, you call people to the service in that way. The bell is rung a certain way in the song. And that's sort of like I was calling people to the film, and then it's closed in a certain way. So the film is closed. The film in itself arcs in the same way of a ritual in the spiritual Baptist faith. And I like when form and subject matter complement each other. That's what I try to do with my films, or theme and form. So it's about a ritual. The film itself becomes this ritual through this the use of sound and stuff. Yeah.
Yes, and for us, I definitely wanted to have an original soundtrack. And again, just having a talented crew, and Jeremy Ashbourne, he scored the entire film from beginning to end. The only music that we purchased was the credits track. And so again, it was just going through and trying to just have music, support the story and add layers of emotion and capture the vibe of Jamaica at points. And so that was really beautiful, again, at each point in the storytelling, looking at how we could empower another creative in the field here versus, purchasing things online. So music is such an important part of the storytelling, and it's so wonderful to see how music crosses with film.
Well, you guys both did an excellent job with that music. Like, Melanie 𝗞𝗚𝗧, that was a big thing, and the sounds of the faith, for anybody who's familiar with that, the bell is so iconic, just kind of going back to a little bit of what you said about the minorities of the minority status of the spiritual Baptist faith in Trinidad, for those who aren't, who are now learning about all of this, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, wow, we didn't even know any of this. We had to declare a public holiday for them. And that happened just maybe 15 years ago, less than 20 years ago, because they have been a very discriminated group,
Their practices were banned in both Trinidad and St. Vincent, in the same way that, there's still legislation that criminalizes homosexuality. So there's that juxtaposition as well.
Mm-hmm. And Kia, that last song, when they go to space, I was like, this is great. And I was like, they had to pay some money for this, which is a bad, it's like, I should have been like, oh my gosh, who scored this? But you just assume that.
Yeah, no, it was original. And we said we wanted it to have this epic 80s vibe and all these references for what I imagined. And then, Jeremy brought it to life, and we went back and forth until it was right. And it was so fun to, to figure out the right mood and song for each moment.
It did. So great job. So I'm going to kind of combine our last two questions, and then we'll switch to audience questions for a little bit. So we'd like to know what's next for you guys, and, kind of put that into the context of the connective tissue between, your film. So, what is some of the other work that you're working on? And how is it, what's the kind of unique language artistically as a filmmaker that you're doing across your body of work, or bodies of work? Melanie, you go first.
Well, I'm in post-production on a film. It's a film for children, but it deals with spirituality. It happens in the same Afro-Caribbean spiritual space. So there's that common thread that I see it like a domino effect with my work, one leads into the other in some way. And then coming out of Third Horizon and CAPA, I met some amazing filmmakers, and we are trying to form a collective to make a queer film across different countries and different islands. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Yes, I love the collaborative vibe always. I really think that the way to move forward with, film itself is so inherently collaborative. So that's exciting that you guys are forming wonderful collectives. And yes, for me, I am, in addition to working remotely for an exciting company, in my free time, I am writing my first children's book. I do realize that I have a passion for children's stories, even though I have a whole roster of other stories that I want to get to that tell, stories of all ages. But I think for right now, especially as a new mom, I am really just loving the children's space. And so, yeah, the book is more than 3/4 way through in terms of the illustrations. And I am working on just the storytelling side, because I've been working out all the visual details and I'm really excited about it. And then I am also working chipping away to write my first feature. So that's going to take a while, because jumping from my first short to my first feature is quite a leap. And so I'm learning to give myself grace, trying to mom, work, adult, everything, to just keep chipping away. So that's what I'm working on.
Well, you're going to make the leap, because you made a big leap with the first one. Period. I mean, that short looked like somebody who had done shorts, like who had done a few. So no. you're going to make the leap to the feature, I think, pretty easily. So, all right.
I would love to also just take a moment to big up my co-director, 𝗟𝗢𝗓𝗚𝗏, who couldn't join us, but he definitely was a part of the journey as well, and he's an amazing photographer. So it was, again, just nice to have that collaborative space and how we were able to just make it visually special.
All right. Well, audience, we're going to pick a couple of questions. Sorry, we can't ask all of them. I always have to apologize for that in advance, because we get quite a few, but keep them coming. So this first one is to Melanie. I feel like after watching the short, I just had more questions and wanting to find answers. Was that intentional in deciding how you wanted to shoot the short and what you wanted to get the audience to?
I think it was, I'm gonna say it wrong. I think it was Toni Morrison, when she was talking about writing her books, that she's writing for people who, if you don't understand, like, you can do the research. And I think that I wanted people to do more and ask questions and do the research. If you're interested in spiritual Baptist faith, or, what's happening within the LGBTQ community in the Caribbean, there's space. There's only so much you can say in a short. Sometimes I worry I could be too cryptic, but I feel like sometimes in the Caribbean we might feel this need to explain everything to the outsiders who might not understand all the specific context in which we live and do things. So yeah, and it's normal, I think, to have questions, but I hope that those questions would then lead to your own exploration of, like, what's this faith about? Let me learn more about it, or, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good answer. And there's one for Kia as well. Well, there are a few for both of you guys. But for Kia, was it hard writing your first short? And what was the process for you to try to pack so much into such little time?
Yeah, it was very hard. I thought that going from advertising to film would have been an easier transition than it was, because I was like, okay, an ad is 30 to 60 seconds, and then the short film is 13 minutes. I just have to write 13 ads strung together. But it was just a totally different world. Like, the layers and complexity of screenwriting are both fascinating, intimidating, like so many things at once, all the layers that you're working with. So it was really hard, but it was also just exciting to be learning about this whole new world. And I joked that I did a rewrite for every minute, because I did 13 rewrites and it's a 13-minute film. And I had to be learning as I was going along. 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 making more short films, they had some workshops during the process. And so I did some directing and writing workshops, lots of YouTube, reading books. Save the Cat is really great. and just trying to learn as I went along and trying to quiet the perfectionist in me and just dive in. So I definitely encourage you guys to just, get started and have fun on the journey.
And I think there's a piggyback question that just came in, 𝗙𝗟𝗪𝗚𝗚. Well, we say Braffett sometimes in Trinidad. Hi, I have a question for Kia. Loved your film. So as you're talking about writing, I chose to read this one because she asked if writing a book, how does that compare to writing a film?
I know I keep choosing all these different forms of writing. So it's definitely different. And so that's why I also wanted to start with children's books, because I like that it's a limited amount of pages to give you like a shorter span to start with. So what I'm bringing to it is both what I've learned about storytelling through film, and then, saying things with less words in advertising. And then I also have recently also purchased books on writing for children. So it's interesting as a writer to explore different forms of writing, but it's definitely each has its own world with its own, structure that we have to honor, and then we can see how we can break the rules. But yeah.
Right. Okay, so I'll end the questions with one for both of you. What are tips that you each have for aspiring filmmakers? Ooh. Oh, go first.
Melanie, you want to go first? I know I was just talking.
Go out there and make stuff. I really think, like, sometimes we can be like, oh, wait for the money, or wait for the right collaborators, or wait for, the story to come. Like, if this is what you want to do, I'd say go there and experiment and do different things. You're gonna make mistakes, but that's part of the learning process. Reach out to other people who you are doing what you want to do. I'm a believer in that. A lot of people are more welcoming than you think, and more open to talking about their experiences. So reach out, ask questions. How did you get on this production? Or, what's the best gear for me to invest in? Or, there are people out there who, I like to see us as a Caribbean community, and we all face similar struggles, and like this world of film that we're trying to do that isn't always easy, but there's asking and reaching out and asking advice is part of that process that I think can be beneficial to people. Yeah, I think those are my main tips. If any come to mind, I'll say, but Kia, what are your tips?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Melanie's point, particularly on collaboration. Like film, as you see, when you see the credits roll at the end of any film, like so many people are involved. It's really hard to do everything yourself, and you don't want to. You want to trust everybody who is an expert in their different roles. So start building out your team and look, often I feel like we try to look for like a mentor, people above us, but who is the people beside us? That has so much power. Look to your peers and build your own table, build your crew, dive in. And I always like to recommend something that I've learned on the journey, in terms of, at first I would get intimidated to tell the next story. And I did this amazing workshop where the teacher said, you don't have to be anxious because you're just a vessel. You're not actually the author. And I love to share that advice because it removes so much anxiety from me to be like, yeah, I'm really not the screenwriter or the storyteller. I'm just the vessel. And it's just about like letting the stories flow through you and doing the best that you can to honor the story. And I just feel like as a creative, it's so important to just remain hungry and humble and collaborative and just go in with that mindset.
Great advice, guys. Really, really good. This is good. And there are more questions that I'm burning to ask, but we just want to respect everybody's time because we've been going for a little bit, but it's been such a great conversation. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, ladies, so much. And so the final kind of, thing we'd like you guys to share with the audience is how they could keep up with your work and everything that you're doing. So any socials, websites that you'd like to share, we'll include this in the information as well, but it'd be great to hear from you. What's the best way for people to follow you? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Instagram. My name on Instagram is 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗏, which if you don't, I just wanted to pick a random Jamaican object. And so if you don't know, a 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗏 is like one of our cut up holy vests that just lets the breeze in. So at 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗏 on IG is probably the best way.
Melanie?
I'd say Instagram as well. Sometimes I don't always post a lot, but my Instagram handle is MELGL Grant. Mel GL Grant. Yeah, so you can follow me there.
And we will be sharing these handles with everyone as well. So just stay tuned for that. But you guys post because people will want to know what you have coming up. And, I'm a bad person to give that advice because I don't like to post much, but you guys have films that people want to see.
It's a struggle, especially when you're writing. Like my WhatsApps, DMs, emails just be piling up, but I'm always happy to always share advice whenever I can. If anyone reaches out, I'm very passionate about sharing the knowledge.
Yes, awesome. And I would like to thank Alicia for being an awesome host. I don't know if you want to end with any comments, but this was really great.
And I just thoroughly enjoyed both films. You guys are so talented. I look forward to your future work. And I highly encourage the audience to follow you guys and just really dig into, what stories are coming out of the Caribbean. Support your local Caribbean filmmakers, whether it be by buying tickets to their screenings, sending encouraging words, whatever you can do to help our emerging and established Caribbean filmmakers know that we're out there, we love your work, we're supporting you, and we're behind you 100%.
I want to echo that. Just yesterday, I was having like an IG live about today, and it came to me to say, it was a Caribbean audience, that Caribbean filmmakers need support more than a lot of filmmakers from other regions, because there's no other way for like, our films are not shown in Caribbean theaters regularly or, on TV. So the festivals need the support. The filmmakers need the support for, forums like this that we have to create outside of the regular forums to showcase their work. So Caribbean people need to support Caribbean films. All right. Yeah. Well, ladies, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Yes.
And thank you.
You guys are both awesome. Somebody messaged in the chat that, everybody's always so good looking. You did not disappoint. You guys looked awesome too. Just as good as your films. But just for everyone, for what's coming up next for Short Film Saturday, we have a Venice Award-winning short film from a Pakistani director and producer, 𝗏𝗏 𝗚𝗎𝗏 and Saim Sadiq, and also a film from Venezuela, our first film from Venezuela, from director Pablo Zapata. So we're going to have that next week for Short Film Saturday, and we will be posting the Q&A for this as well as past screenings. So like and subscribe to this YouTube page. Follow us on Instagram at soil.space. Follow Third Horizon Film Festival also on Instagram, and Caribbean Beat, our editorial partner, which is the magazine, official magazine of Caribbean Airlines, the Caribbean regional airline. And one of the things I want to end with is to let you guys know that we're live today with our new website, soilspace.com, where you can watch trailers of the films for each upcoming Short Film Saturday. You can watch Q&As from previous screenings, and the new website also has our library of our podcasts, Soleil Spotlight, all the episodes, all our monthly newsletters, blog posts, industry analysis, a lot of news and opinion from film and TV industries across the global South diaspora. So we're really excited about that. So visit that as well, and you'll get more information coming up to each Short Film Saturday. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having us.